Alrighty, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dare to Disagree, your weekly episodic podcast where we, regular Joes that know everything, tell you guys exactly how to fucking fix your lives. I'll be your host out of California, Jonathan Hester.
This is Alone in the Dark in Colorado.
This is Puppet Master in the place where we all hate everybody.
That's true, too.
It's actually pretty damn true. That's the sad part. And that's the crew. We might have one more joining us, Mr. Cold Conscience himself, off of his Why Repent I'ma Do It Again tour. Check him out on Stitcher and YouTube.
It's wildly
Anyway.
unsuccessful spin-off show.
Yeah, wildly successful. But anyway, so I guess we took a week hiatus because last week we were going to get on the show, but that was right around the time about that San Bernardino nonsense occurred. So we kind of took a vote and all agreed that nobody was in the fucking mood to try to be funny about anything.
Let's say nobody had anything to say other than probably a half hour's worth of explicit language.
Yeah, that was pretty much unanimous all across the board. Everybody just wanted a curse. So
That's
So
what we
we did.
as anyways.
So we so we did the right thing and turned on you guys and proceeded to curse on Rocket League. So that was a lot better.
I like the
lot
Rocket
better.
League plug. Good job.
Look, man, they need to know there's good stuff out there.
They do need to know.
But anyway, let's go ahead and just knock this out the park quick. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna be quick or not, but either way, let's address it. Let's start with Puppet Master. Your thoughts.
About
The San Bernardino nonsense.
I still don't have anything to say that's going to be beneficial to this conversation at all. I am still livid.
Yeah, I can't blame you. You got anything Alone in the Dark?
One thing, I mean, obviously, the general topic we're all going to agree on. This one probably too, but have you guys seen people trying to sell this as a false flag operation?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. And they were
Yeah.
trying to say that it was 3 tall white guys in full tack. And
Yeah. And
yeah.
what irritates me about this is I don't think these people really understand that if you wanna check it to see if it's a false flag, then I totally understand. If you want to investigate that, I understand being worried about that. Okay, don't call this shit a false flag operation until you are 150% sure, because all you're doing is insulting the victims and their family. Okay, you're pretending these are all bullshit lies and bullshit liars by trying to sell this shit. I mean, people did that during the Sandy Hook thing. A couple people got on, oh, look, I saw a girl who looked just like this one in the other shooting. They're all actors. It's all bullshit. Are you kidding me? Like, you guys need to really not just make an assumption, hey, this could be an operation. Before you run around saying it, you need to be 150% sure, okay? Because all you're doing is insulting the victims. That's it. It's horrible. I mean, we saw it during 9/11 too. I totally understand there's a bunch of 9/11 truthers. I think that's a very bold word to use for that, okay? But I understand that there was some questionable shit in there, okay? Not really questionable to anybody with freaking education that I spoke to, okay? But for the fucking 9-to-5ers who aren't engineers, who aren't architects, who aren't fucking aircraft specialists, it looked a little sketchy to some of us. But people were straight up accusing families of their kids dying and them knowing about it, that it was a fake operation, and them just being cool with it. It's horrible. I mean, you can't just jump to these fucking crazy conclusions with fucking very little to no evidence of anything. And run around saying the shit. It's fucking horrible shit that you're saying. So that's
Yeah,
you know.
I think it is a testament to just how mistrustful, like just how much lack of trust there is in the media. Period. To,
I
to
don't. I wouldn't even stop it. I wouldn't stop at the media. I'd say mistrust in the
everything.
media and the government as a
Yeah,
whole.
yeah,
That
no,
that whole beast together. Those two fucking. Those two entities having an affair and putting out these bastard children of stories fucking kills me.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty much clear as day now that whenever these incidents occur, one of them has an agenda, the other has an agenda. It's always the same. They each have an agenda that they start immediately pushing after this. And I after this massacre, this was the closest I've come to having reasonable conversations with people that normally I had completely unreasonable conversations with about gun control or anything. Because we all just came online and all just kind of agreed, like, fuck this, period. Just fuck this. This needs to stop. And it became a thing of they didn't trust their media either, and which caught me off guard. Like, it was the first time I would hear these guys go, I don't trust any of my media sources. And I went, me too. I'm right there with you, bruh. Like, I go hunting for the truth. But even like a great example of this is we were talking online with a couple of acquaintances will be the word I use for it, about that information that got passed around of there were more mass shootings this year than there have been days of the year.
Yeah.
So that's been a commonplace one, and there was several trustworthy sources or sources I trusted that posted those. But as I kept digging, I kept finding other people countering, like, these numbers aren't matching up with the government's numbers on mass shootings. Like, these numbers keep altering depending on where you look. You know, the higher end sources obviously say that's it, but there's some more conservative is the wrong word to use because I don't want it to be a political thing. It's more just there's some sources that are just suspicious about how high that number is being run and what are the qualifications people are using as mass shootings. This was something that should be a simple black and white thing. Should be like, this is what mass shooting means. These are the amount of mass shootings there are. And now there's even debate over something that basic. That's terrible, especially in an environment where we're trying to figure out how to solve a serious issue of terrorism in America and how to address it as a society, an American society coming around the corner of just, having a war with these people. How do we address dealing with this issue without being bigots, xenophobes? And you have these numbers just going around being skewed all over the place. That can't even be trusted. If something that basic is that hard to find in a simple format, there's no hope for anything.
Yeah, and it just twists on how they define it. Some people
Yeah.
define it as this, some people define it as that. It's hard to keep track of.
I mean, it's to the point where I'm seeing people throwing out. Some guy posted something earlier today about see, Donald Trump is right. There is a legal leg for him to argue that Muslims should be banned from this country. And the quote they were using was from a law which required anybody who has been convicted of terrorist activity or associated with terrorist activity not to be allowed into the country. It's like, and I had to comment, like, dude, this is assuming that all Muslims are either terrorists or terrorist affiliated. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever fucking read. So it's just, it's depressing that we can't even start to have a constructive conversation about it because everybody trusts every source so little that we can't even have facts to base a conversation off of.
Yep. We're like pre-internet America.
Yeah.
No facts,
Easy.
nothing. Just making up.
It's just fucking depressing. You would think at least there would be one source we could go, no matter what happens, this source is unbiased, factual, and unvarnished. Nothing.
Well,
No source is that way.
and you're right. You're never going to find it. Even something as simple as take the president or Donald Trump talking for one. Unless you literally watched a live speech, 100% unfiltered, undelayed, no relay whatsoever, fucking speech, you are never going to see that again, because once it's done, it's going to be chopped and fucking edited and have it say what the fuck you want it to say. So none of this stuff can be considered factual unless you're watching an unadulterated version of what just happened.
Yep. And that's hard to find.
It's impossible to find.
Yeah.
Not unless you're watching it, no shit, no relay, where if Donald Trump slips up with the fuck word, Jesus Christ, it's on there.
Yep. I mean,
or what was that lady or that retired Army colonel looking up boxing called Obama a pussy.
yeah. That was pretty funny.
That slipped out of his mouth, and he probably felt pretty good about that.
Man, that dude's a conservative hero right now, man. It's just.
But I mean, you're not gonna find shit like that unless it's a spur of the moment, fucking unfiltered. It's just not gonna happen.
But as far as I'm concerned, that's a huge problem. Well, actually, I'm sure you guys agree. It's a huge problem because the only way to combat radical terrorism is information. Good, accurate information, period. Because if not, people can just make up whatever bias they want with pieces of facts, and nothing gets ever moves forward.
I
spent all morning debunking. Yeah, I spent all morning debunking this thing somebody posted about well, aside from Muslims, when was the last time you saw a beheading? And I was like, look at all these beheadings that have happened through the year. Now, granted, it was almost impossible to find in the flood of Muslim beheadings I saw online. But you look around enough, they're out there, man. We're just so focused on this one thing. This is all we're talking about. It's like when people talk about, oh my God, when Paris got the attack and people were doing all the flags for the Paris attack, tons of people were bringing up there was an attack in Africa. Why weren't there no flags for those guys? Which we know the answer to, but
There's attacks in Africa all the time.
Because those people don't matter. Oh.
Both of those.
Look, it's a. I don't even know what I was gonna say. I don't fucking care.
I don't blame you. It's fucking. It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Here's my problem.
Yeah.
You know what? Half our problem is that we've become so PC that we can't say the truth. We can't say what's really going on. And that is part of the issue that we have. We literally are afraid to say something. And it's fucking ridiculous. It's that simple.
But see, the thing I have an issue with is I always see people say that everybody's getting too offended. And then, like, a day later,
they get offended.
there's something they're offended about, Like, people were bitching about, how could you get, just because I say Merry Christmas to you, how could you get so freaking ridiculous, people get offended by that, blah, blah, blah. Day later is that asshole, that fucking Kevin Smith wannabe, the fucking Paul Blart wannabe, that preacher who is bitching about Starbucks only having red cups for...
Yeah.
And
those exact same people.
All these people are offended because the cups were just red. It's not like it said atheism is the best or fucking happy fucking Hanukkah or anything like that. It just didn't say anything. And all these people who were just complaining about people being offended about Merry Christmas were now super offended that these cups didn't have snowflakes and reindeer and Santa Claus on them, Bunch of things that have nothing to do with freaking Christ or Christianity or anything like that,
But they're part of the problem too, though. That is. I'm not saying it's not a one-sided thing. It's both sides have created this atmosphere. It's not one. The people who haven't contributed to this is people like me and you who don't give a fuck what I say and offend. It don't matter. It doesn't. I don't care who gets pissy about what the fuck I said. I don't care if it's my own wife. You know, she knows me. If it comes out of my mouth, I probably fucking meant it.
Yep. I mean, and that's totally true. You know, you don't care who you offend. Like, what is your name again?
Huh?
What's your name again?
Hey, that's a whole different subject. Last time I checked, you got one too.
True.
But
And there's a whole different reason for that, and you know it. So let's not go there. Because if I wasn't in this situation, definitely, absolutely, I'd put that out there.
But I don't know, man. I mean, it's just getting tiring, you know. And we're having all these big issues, and everybody's response to it is not working to fix it at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my big issue. Is nobody is actually caring to fix it. They just want to drive their fucking agenda. I mean, at the expense of the country itself.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I've yet to legitimately see someone push an agenda despite their former beliefs to fix things.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just getting real fucking here.
Yeah. It's at this point I kind of hit a wall where I don't really care whether it agrees with what I think or not. I just care that you believe it'll work and it's a reasonable plan at this point. Let's just freaking get a ball in motion so we can start figuring some shit out.
Some shit. But anyways, I don't want to drone on about this topic.
Yeah.
I think one last thing. I think we need literally a independent fucking atheist as the president of the United States.
you know, that's actually not the worst idea.
I'm not lying. I totally think that would be the one way this would get fixed. The only way.
The thing I'm worried about that, because I've actually had that discussion, will the country be better? Like, because they estimate, I want to say by 2000, but by the mid of this century, I think, that the majority will be either non-religious or like the non-affiliated, right? Either
Right.
Yep.
agnostic, blah blah blah. People just I don't fucking know. That will be the majority in the U.S. Okay, and mostly the world. You know, I mean most of Western civilization. I'm wondering if that will be better or not. You know, because right now I totally agree. I think non-affiliated, either atheist, agnostic, something, or just somebody who says I don't fucking know. I'm not religious because I don't know which one's right. Would be perfect at this time. But what about when atheists and agnostics are the majority? Will they still? Because right now, being a minority freaking belief, you have reason to be gentle and likable and not in people's face, okay? Because you're outnumbered, you're outgunned. You need to be tactful, you know, for the most part. But when you're the majority, will you still be respectful of these people's beliefs? Because I see a lot of atheists out there who think that they're a fucking genius and they're a fucking practically a scientist because they're an atheist. No, you're not, dude.
Yeah.
You're no smarter. And they act
that's
like people are idiots.
That's no different than these you know, overly religious, you know, Christians and Catholics and Jewish individuals. I mean, they have the same people who think the same thing. They push their agenda just like a politician does, and push it down everybody's throat. I don't think it'll be any different when the majority changes. I think you'll have the few, the handful that do, and you'll have the rest who are just fuck it, man. It's your choice. You want to fucking believe in that horse shit, then you believe in that horse shit. That's your business, not mine. We all end up in the same place anyway. You just work way too hard to get there.
It's fucking hilarious.
I mean, my biggest thing that I dislike about religions, and only certain ones, is when you think that life gets better once you die. Okay? Because that leads to a bunch of horrible fucking shit. I mean, you have people who rig bombs to their children because they think, I'm giving this kid an express ticket to heaven. You know, these people don't do it because they're super freaking, you know, devout about their cause and etc. That. This is their ticket to fucking heaven. If you're in a shitty spot like Iraq, Afghanistan, all these fucking third world countries, and somebody says, hey, I'm gonna, here's your kid, they're gonna grow up in fucking poverty and in this bullshit you grew up in. Or you could put a bomb on them, they're gonna be a fucking hero to God and live in fucking, extreme wealth and have everything they want. This is why these people do it, And that whole mentality, if you have a religion that doesn't believe that, like, hey, I believe in a God, but, like deists, like our founding fathers. Our founding fathers believed in a God. They didn't believe you went anywhere, for the most part, after you died. And that caused them to make a whole bunch of freaking really good rules for now.
Yep.
Make this life as expensive as we can, as long living as you can, and as much freedom as you can to get the most out of this life, because that's it. Once you're done here, you're done.
I just had this vision of this guy in Iraq sending his 8-year-old boy off in a suicide vest and being like, yes, I just hooked him up with 72 virgins.
I was fucking this for me. That's right. Fucking eat fucking potatoes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
The sad part is, you guys, I wish I could show you guys just how close you are to the truth, man. Because when I lived back in Africa, when you talk to these guys and their belief, when you got like priests and nuns beating kids in Catholic school, like beating them until they were like bleeding, because this is the right thing for God. God said, "Spoil the rod, save the child." That statement, I watched it as I was, becoming a teenager. I watched it become a license to beat kids almost unconscious.
Oh yeah.
So if it's that obvious with something like that, and people, I know Americans will hear stuff like this and go, "It's ridiculous. Nobody would strap a bomb on their kid." No, they would.
And it's
for their benefit.
It's not just bombers like that. These faith healers we have in the U.S.
Oh yeah.
They fucking let their kids die horrible fucking deaths, okay, by not taking them to a hospital. But in their mind, they believe, yeah, the kid died, but guess what? He went to heaven. If I had taken him to the hospital, he wouldn't. Jehovah's Witnesses, they're against blood transfusions. Yeah, the kid's gonna die if they get a blood transfusion, but he's gonna go to hell if he gets it. So it's better for him to die now, go to heaven, and I've just freaking helped my kid. And that's the point I've made when I was in the South. People, well, even if it's not true, just being religious makes you a better person. It is. If you are religious, your chances of killing your own child jump up by a spectacular percentage. Because if you're not religious, this life is the only one you're giving them. And it doesn't mean that 100% you're not good. There's still crazy fucking people out there. They're still going to kill their kids. But it's kind of like that guy said, there's always going to be good people doing good things, bad people doing bad things. But when you get good people doing bad things, that usually takes religion.
Yep.
Well, and that's the issue. And I know a lot of people who are very religious and are wonderful fucking people. And that's just because that's what their religion is telling them. But that doesn't mean that a religion's going to tell them that.
We've already had this talk. You know how I feel about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad that we have to keep rehashing the same thing, but it keeps being valid. It's really unfortunate. So I mean, I was gonna switch the topic if you guys didn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, because for me, I do hope one of you guys, if you guys get a solution for this, come and lay it down for us, because at this point, that's all I'm curious about. I'm just asking people about solutions. Like, do you have an idea?
I'm telling you, independent atheist. That's the solution.
It's a good way to go. All right, this is my change of topic here.
Oh, by the way, that means that what's his name? Charlie's standing for Bernie Sanders. So There we go.
He's not an atheist.
No, he's not,
Not officially, no.
but he might as well be on the rail. All right. So you guys see what I just posted there?
No, where'd you post it?
I posted an image. I'm sharing it right now. All right. Do you guys know what that is?
Well, the right says it's a Michael Kors asymmetrical. Oh, you're talking about the picture.
Yes. Yes. I'm not
I
talking.
was like, why am I looking at this?
I'm not talking about the Ford Escape.
What's up?
That
What is this?
is the only copy of Wu-Tang's Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, a CD that they
Okay.
recently made a single copy of, intended to sell that single copy for $5 million.
Man, I would have bought that. If I had $5 million, bought that and uploaded it to fucking Pirate Bay.
Yep.
Oh, that is a brilliant thing, except
I think
Wu-Tang placed an 88-year copyright on the $5 million secret album.
Damn, I think that's the maximum you can copyright, right?
Exactly, which is kind of brilliant. You know, like make one album, and their argument is, you know, like when Picasso makes a Picasso, you only get one Picasso, yada yada, a bunch of nonsense. But here that whole story fascinated me to begin with. Right? Like it's a brilliant, like curious concept of like we're gonna make one album that only one person can afford, and when they buy it, they'll be the only person that gets to listen to it. And they're just not allowed to share it with people. Period. You know, all backup copies have been destroyed. Do you guys remember that asshole that cranked up the AIDS medicine?
Turing,
Yep.
pharmaceutical, I think his name is Michael something.
Don't give him the satisfaction people knowing his name.
Yeah. I don't bother.
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He bought this album.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. And when asked about it, his
He said
comment,
it was trash.
because he couldn't be a bigger douchebag if he tried. His comments were, I haven't even listened to it yet, but if Taylor Swift were inclined, I would listen to it with her as soon as she wants.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
So
You know what? I'm
just
sure
put it-
Taylor Swift doesn't give a fuck about Wu-Tang.
So I don't think anybody pointed that out to him, but just out of curiosity, I wanted to see, hearing that story, what is you guys' thoughts? Just no opinion of mine, just hearing the story, what is you guys' thoughts?
Well, I'm just thankful it's a Wu-Tang album and not somebody good.
Yeah, I know, right? But say, you know, which of the 82 members of Wu-Tang is on that album?
Every single one of them, probably. Some extra collaborators, who knows? Alright. Because a friend of mine posted a little bit of a rant about it. Because I paid attention to it, but I was just like, rich people doing rich shit, whatever. Ain't nothing new under the sun. But a friend of mine posted an interesting rant. Which basically, I'm going to paraphrase here, but the rant was that he believes Wu-Tang did this to start a dialogue on the value of music.
Wu-Tang did? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of, but and he has some foundation to it. Like they're the main members of Wu-Tang, RZA, and Method Man, have commented before on the worth of music and the worth of an artist's work, you know.
Okay.
And he's arguing that this is kind of Wu-Tang doing postmodernist art. Like, look at this, an album made exclusively for the wealthy that got sold to someone who represents exclusively the wealthy. Like, is there a better way to translate how America is going than the way Wu-Tang just described it right now? Now, I think he's giving Wu-Tang a little too much credit. But I thought it was an interesting jump-off point for the argument as to the worth of an artist's work. And we've talked a little bit about it in the past, about how we feel about, you know, uh, downloading and stuff like that, and Spotify and all that. And I was just curious. I wanted to kind of revisit that and see if you guys' opinions have changed. So, how do you guys feel about that stuff?
About what? Free music?
Well, just the worth of an artist. Do you think it's wrong? For example, Spotify gives so many cents on the dollar for every song played on Spotify, right?
Oh wait, no, nobody's. I mean, who's paying?
Artist.
Well, here's my thing, man. In my opinion, okay, I think what we pay.
Hey, I got bounced. My bad.
Oh, okay, later.
I think what we pay for this shit is fucking obscene in the first place, you know? And it's kind of hard. Like, we talked about when that whole Tidal shit came out. The artists who really were the faces of Tidal were a bunch of people where we're just like, yeah, I feel really bad that you're not getting enough money. You know, you guys who show this obscene wealth and how you guys waste it is ridiculous, you know? I mean, that's the hard part for me of seeing this shit, seeing these freaking artists who are not even just talking about good artists, shitty artists, okay? Keisha, you know, that's a really shitty artist, makes more money than we'll probably ever see in our lives. You know, all of Dare to Disagree combined, you know?
True.
So it's hard to look at these artists who are making this freaking obscene money and respecting what they fucking that they're not making enough. Now, I know there's poor artists out there. Trust me, I know that. Okay. But you know, should a freaking musician make more than a fucking doctor? Make more than freaking people who lead or major freaking corporations? And again, CEOs make way too much money as that goes, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. That's the difficulty for me. You know, I think artists are way more compensated than they ever should be. Now, the issue with that is, do we reduce the amount of money that the artist gets and all this money just goes to whatever the record label, the managers, you know, who should get that fucking money? They obviously deserve theirs, getting this shit out there in front of them, but right now they're making way more money than this artist should. Or can we reduce the cost to the fucking consumer?
Yeah.
A CD shouldn't cost $20. I think it's crazy when I see a CD for $20. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
you
$5 for a CD is perfectly fucking reasonable.
Yeah, you see guys like Louis C.K. making a great statement by posting their art directly online for $5. You know.
Or just, hey, here's my stuff. Listen to it. If you like it, throw me a donation.
Yep. And then there's some artists who have made that method of working, and it's paid off in dividends.
Yeah.
You know, some artists have gotten way more money than they ever expected, and some artists have been underwhelmed. I guess the caveat here is your art would have to be good, huh?
Yeah, and you know it's kind of annoying that some things, like I used to love watching music videos back in the day, and I still do to some extent, but a lot of times the music video is being paid for by the bullshit that they're fucking advertising. You know, you see them whip out a fucking cell phone that's going to be popular for the next 15 days until the next one comes out, you know, or the little freaking jam boxes or shit like that. That's what's actually paying. It's not even the fucking music that's paying for this video. It's that plug in there, you know. But
it's kind of funny. I feel the same way about whenever I see Beats headphone in any music video now.
Oh yeah, exactly. You know,
if I'm watching a music video and I see a Beats headphone, 9 times out of 10, I'm never watching that video again.
I just think it's ridiculous, and I think there can be a scale to, here you are, you're an up and coming artist, you're doing local shit, this and that, you're making enough money to get by. Okay, now you're getting statewide. You know what? Now you're becoming successful. You should make $80,000-$90,000 a year, a good living. You know. Now you're nationwide. Well, guess what? Now you're one out of every. You know what? How many artists are there that get nationwide that compared to artists that don't make it at anything? You know,
we'd say maybe one for every 1,000. Yeah.
Okay. So you should make more money than most. You should make one out of one That's 0.1% money. Let's say $400,000 a year. Worldwide, up it a little more. $600,000-700,000 a year. That should be the maximum. Millions upon millions of dollars. Like, let's see how much did Taylor Swift make last year.
And by the way, this I think what your point is doesn't just stop here. I think this extends into sports. Baseball just had one of the most ridiculous signings they ever had for a pitcher, like $34 million or $24 million over 4 years.
Taylor Swift made $57 million in a year.
And mind you, this is just based on what we know.
Yeah.
This isn't all those, private events she's probably done where money's just handed to her, or any of the endorsements she gets, or any of the free perks she gets as a celebrity. This is just income that can be calculated.
Yep.
So God knows how much she actually made.
Or what she doesn't have to pay. Like,
exactly.
A yacht would cost me and you $70,000 for a fucking week on a yacht. She gets it for free,
True. And I feel that conversation extends into everything, including sports. Now, obviously, there's some bands out there that do a pretty good job selling themselves. Like, they do a great job selling themselves to their core audience and being okay. Like, here's a great example is the Dave Matthews Band. Feel however you want to feel about the Dave Matthews Band, but that is a band that has learned how to keep a fan base, Like, they have fans. I forgot there's even a name for those guys, but they have fans that'll travel state to state following their tour. That does say something about Dave Matthews fans in itself, but not my point.
That's crazy.
My point, yeah, it is. My point is, Dave Matthews has found a way to not be greedy about their art. They're very successful and they're very well off, but they don't push their art any further. Every year, if they need a little bit of money, they make a new album, or if they feel inspired, they make a new album, and then they tour. And that money usually covers them for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, But then you have guys like, as you were talking about Tidal, I'm going to use Madonna as an example. Guys like Madonna coming out and saying stuff like, my music shouldn't be, illegally downloaded, and Spotify shouldn't have my music. Metallica is in the same boat, and so is Tool. Like, they don't have their music on Spotify because they feel they're not getting compensated enough. And it's like, enough? What the fuck is enough then, dog?
What do you fucking need?
Yeah, like what is and the argument that's being made from that camp has always been, I deserve what I earned.
Yep.
Which there's a fair part to it. There's a fair argument to, I deserve what I earned. No argument there. I understand. But there has to be a give and take when you've reached a point of earning where what you deserve doesn't play into it anymore.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things. Like, I always joke around with a friend of mine. His wife got a classic Mustang from her grandpa, but at least in my opinion, they ridiculously exaggerate how much that car's worth. Okay.
Yeah.
This thing was it was kept under a top, but it hasn't run in 15 years.
Yep.
Still kept in decent condition for that amount of time. But it's got damage from being sitting and nobody taking care of it for fucking 15 years.
Yep.
They said in that condition this car's worth $50,000, and I said, listen, in order to prove that to me, all you need to do is post that thing for sale, get one person to offer you to write a $50,000 check, and I'll believe you. Because to me, that car's worth maybe about $10,000. Still a good amount for a car that doesn't run and isn't legal and has been sitting around. Not fucking $50,000. That's ridiculous. So if you are selling your art and it's making that much money, I guess that's saying this is worth what I could sell it for, and this is what I'm selling it for. But I think it's a little crazy. It's well beyond what's needed for that. The amount of work you're doing compared to how much money you're making is fucking crazy. It's kind of like the CEO pay. We've argued about the CEO pay. I think on average, a CEO in the U.S. makes something like 364 times the amount that their workers make.
Yep.
They're not. I guarantee they're doing more work than their average worker for the most part. Okay, be it's a stressful, life-consuming job. They're not doing 365 times the amount of work.
I mean, and then you can get into this territory. Like there's an excellent documentary we've both watched, I believe, the Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Yeah.
You get into a territory with that where artists start to feel like, I mean, then you have to get into the question. If you're going to get into the question of I deserve what I earned, then you can get into the question where now artists can ask you, what is your art worth then? Because to me, it's worth this. In Exit Through the Gift Shop, which is the example I'm using, there was an artist, and if you guys haven't watched it, absolutely go watch it. It's a fantastic documentary. But there's an artist who kind of gets full of himself after a while about his art. And watching him go through the process of pricing his art is one of the most depressing things to watch.
Yeah.
It's fascinating and depressing at the same time, because the sad part about it is he's within his right to do what he did. He just goes around pricing this art willy-nilly, literally pointing at art going, okay, that's $10,000. That's $5,000. That's $7,000. There's no amount of work quantified, which, by the way, he didn't do most of his work. He, divvied out to other people to remake the art that he wanted. But it's to the point where the materials weren't taken into account. The amount of time he put in wasn't taken into account. Nothing. It was just deliberate numbers based on how he felt the art was worth.
Yep.
And at no point was that art worth that, except to the people buying it who thought they were buying more than they actually were. The people that were spending these $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on this art were under the impression that this individual had taken time out of his day to sit there with paint and pen and skill and to make this art one of a kind for them. Not that this guy had an army of drones to do that for him.
Yeah. And I think there's an example of it. It's called The Fountain. Okay, and it was produced by Marcel Duchamp. I'm sure I'm fucking up this name, okay? And what it was he posted this in an art show. It was a porcelain urinal, which he signed R. Mutt and was titled The Fountain, okay? It's submitted to the exhibition for the Society of Independent Artists in 1917, okay? All he did was bought a urinal. I think he put it on a stand, okay? Signed it R. Mutt. And I think if I remember the story right, okay, he just posted it there and people just thought it was the most stupid thing ever walking past it, right? Just thinking it's garbage, ignoring it, this and that. Then he went and included he made it, okay? He posted his, this was made by the artist Marcel Duchamp, right? All of a sudden, people went crazy about how it spoke to them, how it had these multiple meanings, how it was an incredible, fucking story about life and about freaking significance and about how far we've come as a society, just by him putting his name on it. All of a sudden, it was an incredible work of art. And there's some hip hop art, like you probably can name this. One artist said, right now. It's not verbatim, but he said something along the lines of, "I'm so famous right now, I could breathe on a track and go platinum."
Yeah. And in all honesty, it's that argument could be made for Drake right now. Drake has so much ridiculous juice in the game. Here's the truth: that song go up on a Tuesday. That might be the worst bit of hip hop I've heard in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Number one record for weeks. Why? Because Drake went on it and said nothing.
You know what's crazy?
He was just on it.
I saw some article, I was just browsing through it, and somebody made this article about how Drake got screwed out of a Grammy for Hip Hop Bling because I guess his label screwed up somehow on the category of that thing. And it just struck me as he almost won a Grammy for that fucking song.
Oh, yeah. Yep. For Hip Hop Bling. Yep. And that's how much juice the guy has. I mean, ultimately, what's the point of an artist? The point of an artist is to provoke a response from the audience. And we've talked about this before. My particular category is to provoke a specific intended response. That's my specific caveat to that definition. But Drake always elicits the response. I mean, you listen to Hot Light Bling in the club, man, a girl is going to grind on you. Doesn't matter how you look, where you're at. As long as you don't look like you just came out of a pile of trash, a girl's going to grind on you because Drake can do it. On the flip side, there are videos you can see from late night talk shows where they'll have a multi-million-dollar concert violinist, right? Go down and play a multi-million-dollar violin and make $60.
Yep.
So, okay, now was that art worth it? Because we know that's a multi-million-dollar violinist. He's got the accolades, he's got the years of expertise, he's carrying an instrument that is arguably the best of its kind, and people were walking by like, man, I'll pay you as much as the guy that drums on the buckets. So I mean, if you're gonna get to the point where now I earn what I deserve, I deserve what I earned, it becomes an argument of, okay, what's your worth? What's your worth to people? If we don't do the whole radio constantly playing your song over and over again to get people to fall in love with it over time, which people forget, that was the person that learned how to make that in an amazing manner was Missy Elliott. People forget that. Missy Elliott was notorious for having tracks you heard for the first time, absolutely hated, and then by the end of the week couldn't stop yourself from singing just because they would play it over and over until you finally got it. Yeah. So it's one of those things where once you get to that point, you get into that argument. All right, so now you're gonna have to prove to me that this music is worth it, because I just watched a multi-million-dollar violinist with a multi-billion-dollar instrument barely elicit a response from an audience. That tells me money isn't where this artist is coming from. You're gonna have to show me how you deserve these millions of dollars you're requesting of me with Tidal, And I don't know if you heard the last Madonna album, because I heard 2 tracks off of it and I was done.
No.
So she should do what all great artists past their prime should do.
Die in a plane crash.
That is not what I was saying. I was saying retire.
Permanently, actually retire. Don't fucking go like Cher on this shit.
No.
Comeback albums. Cher, Jay-Z. But
you know who did it brilliantly, despite herself? Fucking Britney Spears. Brilliant, despite herself. She didn't mean to do it, but that shit worked out fantastically. That bitch put out a bunch of hits, disappeared for a while, went crazy, came back. Because she was inspired off of Crazy and had great writers, obviously, put out a couple more hits, not as big as the ones before, but still hits. And then you know where she is now? In fucking Vegas, where she belongs, doing a Vegas show, and she's set for the rest of her life. She's getting paid like $1 million a year. You don't see her going on tour to get more money or doing additional promotion. She's happy with her $1 million a year.
Jesus. I wonder, I didn't know she was in Vegas. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, she's a Vegas show now. She's a Vegas staple now. She's gonna go out the way of a Cher and all those old Vegas cats.
Yep.
So, but the sad part is that's the way that should work. Britney at her peak was making a couple of million because she wasn't just doing the music; she was endorsing stuff left and right. So she earned a lot of that income, plus the tours, plus all of that. But now her music is subpar. We've grown past her music. We see the bullshit it was. So guess what? She took a step back. She's in Vegas playing her hits. And people that grew up with Britney in their high school can go there and reminisce on youth and listen to Britney Spears.
Damn. I'm gonna have to check that show out, man.
Yeah, but to me, it was just kind of like she didn't ask for a lot of money. She didn't decide to go hog wild. She just it's weird to say it about Britney Spears, but she retired gracefully. It's a bizarre. I never thought that would be the way the Britney Spears story would end in my book. Unlike a guy like Jay-Z, let me be honest with you. The last 2 Jay-Z albums, can you name a track?
Fuck that. I think the last album I liked of his was The Blueprinter.
Yeah, and that's really, I think for me it went as far as the Black Album. Black Album was dope. Every other album after that had a song or two. American Gangster was, let's be honest, it was awful. Yes, I mean, I know some people are gonna get mad at me for saying that, but it was. If you're comparing it to old Jay-Z stuff, it was awful, you know. But all of those guys are getting there. Snoop Dogg's recent albums, no offense, compared to old Snoop Dogg stuff, it's awful, you know.
Snoop Lion.
There should be Snoop Lion, my bad. There should be a point where these guys just either do what Snoop is doing. He's doing a good thing where he supports up and coming talent. He'll show up on tracks left and right to give up and coming talent credentials, you know, showing up on not J. Cole, not Kendrick Lamar, because those guys had enough steam, but like we were talking about Lil Dicky, showing up on like a Lil Dicky album just to give that guy some hip hop credentials. Like, hey, if Snoop Dogg has appeared on his album, this will help market it a little better, you know. Yeah. And he gets a little piece of the action and he's out. Nothing too crazy. But what I'm saying is, if you're going on world tour, I don't feel any guilt in pirating your shit.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, we talked about this episode 1, actually.
Yeah.
About like Jimi Hendrix. Would he have been the hero he is today if he didn't die young, you know? Or would he be doing halftime shows with Celine Dion, you know? And I think it's a fair question, you know? A lot of these legendary artists, they all died young, you know. Tupac and Biggie, those are two. And I'm a big Biggie fan, you know. But would he have stayed relevant? I don't know. You know, it's hard to say. Or are they the heroes? Like, they appear in every decently done greatest rappers in the fucking world. Should they really be there? I don't. I think it's arguable for Biggie. Tupac, and I'm probably gonna piss people off. I don't know if I'd pick him in my top 10 list. You know, it's hard for me to really say that. If he would be top 10, if he was still alive today, if he wasn't fucking marked with tragedy.
True.
So, I don't know, man.
I mean, for me, I stand on a very weird point where, like, arguably for me, the greatest rapper of all time, for me personally, is Eminem. Period.
And he put out average albums himself, you know.
Yeah, and that's the sad part about it. I'm like, for me, the greatest rapper of all time, and I always get flack for it, is Eminem. But my argument has always been, Eminem is the only one in all of these categories that can give you any type of rap you ask for. Anything. You want comedy, he can do it. You want seriousness, he can do it. You want a fast rapper, he'll rap fast. You want a slow, methodical rapper, he'll do it. You want a deep story, it doesn't matter. There's no other artist on this list that is that comprehensive about the art of wordplay. Period. There's no other.
And that's about Biggie and Tupac is they didn't have that variety. You know, you would be a big Tupac fan or a big Biggie fan. You know, he did what he did and he was good at it, but he didn't have a variety. You know, for the most part.
And there's certain people, like names like Biggie and Tupac should always be on a list of best of, because they were instrumental in changing hip hop from the hip to the hop, the don't stop, the boogie to the bang bang boogie, to change it from that hip hop into what it is today, something grimier, something realistic. But they weren't the first. There were others doing it. They were just the first to make it popular too. You know, guys like LL Cool J were out there doing a version of it, a little more aggressive and stuff, but they always should be in the conversation. But at the end of the day, for me, as I said, it's always going to be Eminem. But God damn it, I was going somewhere with this. I completely lost my train of thought thinking about who the best rappers of all time were.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think my point was going to be something along the lines of, even if these are the greatest rappers of all time, even with these the greatest artists, oh, there you go, I got it. Even with these the greatest artists, like my favorite, Eminem, his last few albums were atrocious. The last one was better than the two before, but the last few albums were atrocious. I think it's time for the greatest rapper alive, currently, Eminem, to take a backseat. You know? And this is me absolutely not wanting this to be true. Because ultimately, what made Eminem successful was he had passion, he had rage. What makes all these artists successful is their passion and their rage and whatever. The problem becomes is once you become successful, it's hard to be angry about shit.
Yeah, and I don't care what people say. Oh, money doesn't solve problems. It solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
If money doesn't solve most of your problems, you got bigger problems than you should have.
I think the saying I heard about it is if money isn't solving your problems, you just don't have enough money.
Yeah.
That's always been it. Like, because it's honestly, it's just how do you keep that passion and that angst and whatever if your music and your message has always been based off of frustration. You hear a song like Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix, right? Yeah. Powerful song about some dude just going to kill a chick that cheated on him, right? You feel like he'd still have a passionate song like that once he was rich and successful for a couple of years?
Jesus, no.
You think in his mind it wouldn't just be the song? How would the song not just become? What was that quote you said?
Was if the Stones have girl problems, the Stones get new girls.
Exactly. How do you? And that makes absolute sense because your circumstances change. You're more successful. You're better off. Yada yada yada. It's the same thing with athletes. When they get successful to a point. Unless you're like a football player or something where like it's a very specific talent that doesn't really need to change. If you're like a fighter or something that constantly has to evolve, you stagnate. You stagnate if you're successful for a while. It's literally the cost of success is happiness and joy and relaxation, which is not conducive to pushing yourself to be the best.
Jesus. Ridiculous, man. All right, well, you got any? We should probably this now. You got any 40 shots or anything like that?
Yeah. Hey, Wu-Tang. We're gonna get your album before the 88 years are up, right? You know that, right? You know the douchebag you sold it to, right?
Yeah, he'll fucking sell it real quick for pennies on the dollar.
I don't know about pennies on the dollar. He'll probably freaking up the price 500%.
And for me, Muslims, I understand people are trying to kick you out of the country and stuff like that. But just so you guys keep it in context, we've been trying to kick black people out of this country for like 400 years now. Okay.
I told somebody that today. I told somebody that today, and it cracked me up because we were having a conversation, and I was like, in the middle of the conversation, I was like, you know what? It just hit me. You guys are talking about Muslims the way black people have been talking about white people for fucking years. And he was like, no, the comparison is different. Like, how long have we been beheading you? I'm like, no, that's not my point. Because if I was going to make that argument, I would just compare beheadings to hangings. But that's a whole different thing. That's not even where I'm coming from. But it was hilarious watching them eventually go, oh, shit, okay, you have a point. Where I was like, just substitute white people. Just substitute Muslims for KKK. And no, substitute ISIS for KKK and Muslims for white people. And say anything you were going to say about Muslims and ISIS, except with those substitutions. And you'll understand how black people have felt about y'all for forever.
It's freaking ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. But anyways, that's been the show. We'll hit you guys up next week. Hopefully have more people. I don't know what the fuck happened to Puppet Master.
Yeah, Puppet Master had to run. You know him. He's always a dungeon full of freaking child laborers. So he's got to run away.
Nothing important to do. Lazy pizza.
That and Cold Conscience obviously didn't show up, but that's par for the course.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to throw them out of the country.
All right.
We'll see you guys
that's been the show. Next week, folks. You guys take care.